Handing over to me, Tim.
Okay, yeah. Off to you,
Thank you.
June.
Thanks, Tim. And thank you everybody again for attending. It's lovely to see so many of you, and I'm absolutely delighted that so many people are interested in, commenting on, getting involved in and supporting us in service delivery for Birmingham City Council. We've had one comment, just so for those of you who can't see the chat or can see the chat, we've already had a question, so I'll just address that one before I even get going, if that's okay. What I should say is my name's June Marshall, so I'm head of public participation for the council. And this is very much a session where we're going to be sharing for the first time really our sort of vision and approach for participation across the council. In some areas we already do a lot of work in engaging citizens and listening to citizens and acting on your feedback, but that's not consistent, and we recognise that's not consistent. Hold on, Adib, go back one please. So we recognise there's we've got a part to play in sharing that across all council services, because I fundamentally am passionate about getting people involved in service design, service delivery, because last time I looked, I'm not the expert and I'm not living with your lived experience, and therefore I'm not stupid enough to think I know better than you, because I know I don't. So the first question we've already had in the chat from Carol, thank you Carol, is are we all employed by Birmingham City Council? So I am. Adib is, as a public participation officer. Tim, who's chairing the meeting, is one of our citizen volunteers, and I know we're always looking for new people, so if you want to learn new skills, have a go, come and join us, please get in contact with Adib, or just email us on our Get Involved email box. There are one or two, but not many names on the chat who are City Council officers. This is very much a citizen involvement meeting. So actually what I want to do is hear from you about what you think about our new approach. Have we got it right? Haven't we got it right? Is there something we can do better? It's not a formal launch as of yet, because I fundamentally, I'm living by what I'm saying the document's doing, and what I'm passionate about is actually I want to hear from citizens, because it might not be right. What I will tell you is citizens have been involved in it up until this point, as have a number of other council officers, or some citizens have been involved in it. So I have had some comments, and what you've got in front, what I'll present to you today is a presentation that actually will be supported by a much fuller document, which we will ultimately publish on our website and things like this. But to be honest, for now, what we've got is sort of the main principles and the main approach for our vision for engaging members of the public. As one of the previous slides said, and I know Tim ran through our code of conduct, etc. If you want to ask a question, stick your hand up. I don't mind being stopped whenever. Honestly, I want to hear from as many of you as possible, or you can just drop it in the chat, as Carol did earlier. Sometimes that's easier. The meeting is being recorded, just so we can share it with others who were unable to attend afterwards. But we just want to hear from you really about what you think, and what we can do better, and how we can make a difference together. So now we'll move on. So the purpose and vision of our new approach is very much to develop a strategically bold, coordinated council-wide approach to working with the public, placing oh, sorry, Deeb, you thrown me then by putting a comment in the chat. I do apologise. To develop a strategically bold, coordinated council-wide approach to working with the public, placing your voices at the heart of our decision making. We want to partner with members of the public to create a better Birmingham. Achieving our vision will only work together if we can work together. And just as I mentioned earlier, there are some really good pockets of best practice across Birmingham. What we're doing in the council behind the scenes is trying to learn and share from those pockets of best practice to make it so everybody feels as valued in engaging with the council and listened to. Next slide, please, Deep. It does commit all of us in the City Council to empower the public to shape the places in which you live, and also to transform services to better meet the needs of the people they're established to serve. We deliver council services for you, members of the public. So actually, how does it look and feel? And, are we doing it right? Are we not doing it right? As I said earlier, we're not the experts. You're the ones in receipt of the services who can tell us that. Next slide, please. Why do we need a vision and approach? There was a slide in before this, I believe, Adib. There was one that asked people why we believed, why they thought we needed a vision and approach. So I'm not quite sure what's happened with the order in there. So this is why we think we need a vision and approach. So honestly, I'd really welcome your views on this. Because, you know, citizens tell us you believe the council doesn't listen to you all the time. In some areas we do, I know we do. Because you have a right to influence how we operate. You know, that goes without saying. We've got a value in the council and it's on everything we push. If we'll be bold, but we'll put people first. So actually, if we're not doing that, why are we not doing that? And let's start and address those bad practices where we're not. We want to ensure everyone in the council provides citizens a chance to get involved. So actually, it's about that consistency for me. So as I said, great areas of best practice. For example, adult social care, put people at the heart of every conversation they make when delivering a service to people in need of adult social care services. We know they do it effectively because we support them in it. We know they do it well and which meets the needs is because we've asked adult social care users about what that looks like for them, how that works. We did a piece of work recently where we've actually done some work around healthy living in the city, and we've asked citizens what that means for them, because that then informs how we as a council respond to that forward planning going forward. So other reasons we need a consistent vision and approach is to give citizens a voice. We want to hear from you all the time, as I said, not just in pockets. To help the council design services that you want, which you need. Because the council is not the expert, as I've mentioned, we don't have the same experience as you. And because one size doesn't fit all, engagement comes in many forms, and therefore we can, gather insight and citizen feedback in a number of different routes, and we'll explore that a little bit later in the session. So next slide, please, Adib. Sorry. So our goals for public participation: to empower the public, to shape the places in which you live, transform services to better meet the needs of the people they're here to serve, to build capacity of communities to provide networks of support that avoid, reduce or delay demand for services, and to build trusting relationships with and between communities to increase democratic participation and social cohesion. Can I just stop there? We've got a question in the chat, so I'm going to come to that. Thank you, Richard. But does anybody else have any questions that they want to flag? Anybody want to put their hands up? Any comments to make today? No. So, question from Richard. Why are there no councillors involved in this presentation? Since they make council policy, are there any councillors present in the meeting? Richard, as I mentioned right at the very, very start, this is a citizen meeting, and as an officer of the City Council, I'm responsible for, if you like, sharing the vision and approach across with citizens. And as I said, this isn't a formal accepted document, although I can tell you that the deputy leader of the council is fully cited on this document, has written the foreword of the documents when it's published, and provides a commitment that we as officers will work towards this vision and approach and achieve what's included in this vision and approach. They do make council policy, you're absolutely right, but they do it based on information from officers. And for me, I would be doing a disservice to you all if I didn't involve citizens before I went to councillors and said, this is what I think the vision and approach should be, and this is what citizens have told us what good would look like. So that's one of the reasons we're doing this presentation. So I hope that's answered your query. Please let me know if not. Carol, you think councillors? So there's all sorts of comments coming in. Thank you. And I noticed there was a hand went up, but it went down again. So
it's Leslie. Thanks. We've got Leslie with a hand up. June.
Oh, great. Leslie, do you want to come in? Because I think you were before any of the other comments that came in.
Yeah, I must admit, it sounds a good idea, the citizen forums, but the council have got a terrible attitude of not listening to their residents or whatever. Perry Bar being a great example. It was overwhelmingly decided, oh, we'll have a vote, we won't change the road network. And it was massively over towards not changing it. But the council just went ahead and did it anyway. So really, is this forum going to ever really achieve anything? Because at the end of the day, they're going to do what they want anyway. I live in a sheltered housing block, and we have monthly meetings where we try to ask for stuff to be spent out of our aerial fund, and literally no, you can't have that, no, you can't have this, because it does seem like the mindset of a lot of council officials or people who work for the council, you'll get what we tell you, and it doesn't matter how you should like paint it, I can't see it ever really changing from that.
But if I don't try, how will I ever change that, Leslie? So I hear exactly what you're saying. So one of the things that I mentioned very at the beginning, if you recall, is these are we've got principles, and we'll get into them in a minute. These are our goals. So if we don't have a standard to hold officers to account to, then people can continue to do that in the council. You're absolutely right. The council's a huge employer. I can't go out and talk to them all, but what I can do is put an approach and vision in place that we should, as public servants to you, be accountable for and accountable to. And that obviously starts from the top. You're absolutely. I'm going to give Adib a question that's in the chat, just tip him off in a minute. You're absolutely right. It starts from the top, and it does make a difference. One of the things that I believe the council, and I agree with you, there are some areas of the council where they don't listen properly to citizens. I hear it, I see it. I comment on it, I engage in it, I hold people to account. At the moment, there isn't an agreed approach, if you like, that I can say, well, you're not meeting X. This is the agreed approach that will allow me to do that going forward. And then, once accepted by their directors and this corporate leadership team of the council, actually, all I can do is put in place an approach and give them the tool then to actually address those issues with their colleagues, their staff members. I'm not HR. I'm not somebody that can go around with a big, baton that says, what I can do is do my best, and lead a team that actually is passionate about involving citizens, which each and every one of them is. You can't buy passion and motivation for involving citizens. I'm the first person that stands in a room and will quite happily tell you that citizens should have a voice, citizens should have a say, because at the end of the day, you pay my wages. You pay your council tax. I wouldn't get paid if you didn't pay your council tax. So actually, as a public servant, and you could write public servant through me. I'd like to, there's some comments in the chat that I'd love to have conversations on. As a public servant, I'm passionate about involving citizens, which is why we're here. And you're absolutely right. I know there's areas of inconsistent practice. What I want to do is at least try and make a difference to improve citizens moving forward, because actually the most effective services designed and delivered currently are the ones that we've had citizens involvement in. Because then you're getting the services that you require. And what I would also say is one of the things, and hand on heart, and it is an inconsistent thing across the council again, and one of the things I'm trying to address, and I pick it up later in the presentation, but very much around closing the gap. So actually, if citizens tell us something, and for whatever reason, whether it's legal, whether it's financial or something else, we as a local authority can't meet that need, we should tell you why. We should be open and transparent enough to tell you why. We shouldn't hide behind a policy or a process, or actually just ignore you. That's not true. That's not true participation. That's not meaningful engagement. So actually what we do within this approach and vision is commit ourselves to actually feeding back to citizens. We've got an online survey platform, which I can tell you has a facility for everybody who makes comments on it to press a button and get the feedback back. But not everybody across the council uses it yet, but they will. It's coming into my team in 3 months' time. So we will change it and make a difference. And just reflecting back, and we from one of the very first slides, really, we set up the People for Public Services Forum back in 2019. We've had citizens involved in thousands of pieces of work since then. We really have. And I'm not just saying that as a pinch point, but Birmingham's a big place and we had to start somewhere. So we started in adult social care, who were leading the way in engaging citizens, and the rest of the council are now following suit. Maybe they should have engaged with us back in 2019, but COVID put a bit of a delay on us. But in 4 years, we are transforming services in a small way, but this actually steps up a level. I hope that helps, Leslie. I'm happy to take more queries. Somebody else has got their hand up. Let's go to them.
Carol, please.
Hi, Carol.
Oh gosh. Oh, sorry.
It's all right. Were you on mute?
Me and technology. All right. New to this forum. New to this forum. Looking on your goals, as it were.
Yep.
When you're looking for participation, a lot of it is done by online, internet, etc.
Yep.
I personally don't do the internet. I'm just doing it because of the work I do. But a lot of the people I engage with don't even know half of the work that the council does. They don't know what the council does.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're then trying to, when you're small people trying to do things different, for example, a big bugbear of mine is the work that goes on and all these big contractors come in. And I don't see local people there. And I'm not talking about local people that look like me. I mean, there's work going on, whether it's schools or whatever, and local people, local young men, I had to fight to get one on a building site, don't get the chance. So shouldn't there be somewhere that they at least employ? I know they've got this thing that they don't want to show favoritism. I get that. But shouldn't there be somewhere that they're supposed to employ people that live at least 3-5 miles within the whichever site they're building at the time, so that these young people can get a foot on the ladder and not wait until they're in trouble, number one. The building of trust between the communities and increasing demographics again. Where are these true voices? You know, there's issues I can raise, lived experience, know it. But where are these true voices? Where are these voices that the council say they're listening to? The only people that you may be listening to is people who actually know that meetings like this, and I just happened to come across this meeting, just literally happened to come across it. So where are the true voices being listened to? Because as I say, when you listen to people that are coming new to the city or new to the country, and which groups are they going to? Because sometimes we tap into a lot of people. I'm working from a community centre at the moment. So I'm not faith-based. So faith-based, I get to meet other people. But I'm just saying, where are the voices, and are they really, really trying to hear? Or is it just saying we're listening? And are we really, really listening? Because when you speak to young people, and I mean younger people, are they really listening to them? Because they've also got a voice. So I don't know if there's any young people on here. So I'm going to shout out for them. My seniors, again, I'll scream out for them, because I have one of the most successful senior groups, one of, and I know that Birmingham City Council has not invested in that group. So again, they've got a voice, but they just don't do tech savvy. And that's the few points I just want to say.
Yeah, no, thank you, Carol. I really appreciate it. And I've sort of scribbled notes down. So the reason I'm scribbling notes is so I make sure I pick them all off. So online, and it's mentioned in the chat. So the council, there's been an announcement again in the press today about the council's financial position. As council officers, we've been put on a spending freeze, and so a lot of stuff does go online because it's the more economical way of reaching a greater people. What I will tell you is, before COVID, we did these forums used to be face to face, and we used to hire halls, and we used to, at very low cost. Please don't get me wrong, it was never, you were lucky if you got a cup of tea and coffee, basically. Do it very low cost. During COVID, obviously we were forced to go online, and that actually expanded our reach. surprisingly, although I do accept exactly what you say. I am ever conscious that that doesn't get to people who don't use online as an engagement tool. But sadly and honestly, I can tell you that at the moment I'm in no other position than to do with what we are able to do and allowed to do. So online is our primary focus. However, one of the things that I am doing, and one of the things that the team are sort of thinking about and how we're trying to do it to address those concerns, because we're all trying to think differently, is there are a lot of community organisations and community facilities out there in the community. So actually we could go to them. And a lot of times what we're finding is now is where we're getting free offers of resources, rooms, etc., that we can go to citizens out there and talk to them face to face. We'd love it. If you're aware of any, please help us, because we would come to you, because we are in a financial difficult position. We can't spend lots of money on rooms to go to people. Sadly, I can't print leaflets for people who aren't going online. That's just the fact of the position that I'm sadly in at the moment, and it goes against my grain, but that's my honest answer. I'll do what I can, and I am out and about, and only last week, to be honest, I was out and about at two face settings in one day. I went from a mosque to a convent in Les Hauts. So any of you working in Les Hauts, I was out living in Les Hauts. I was out and about, and I was absolutely flabbergasted. And the people there were just lovely, and they were talking to us about what facilities they've got that we could go and use to talk to people in Les Hauts, in the community, which is where I fundamentally believe we should be. To get this turnout, because we've got over 65 people on today, I don't know if you guys can see that number. I can only do it online because I can't. People don't have massive rooms. But if I can get citizen insight from one person and make a difference, then amazing. Just going to your other comments about where are the voices, where's the true voice. Adib is leading on a piece of work for us about building up some community connectors in the city, so community champions, so people that we can come to, that we can use a free resource at, that we can come and talk to and get citizen insight and feed that back into the local authority, and equally, in addition, tell you what we're doing about that. That's just one avenue. We've got a number of partnerships that run across the council that are also gaining citizen insight, and fundamentally we're not there to challenge people if they say they're there on behalf of a community, because they are. So we do have a faith covenant forum, for example. We have a Proud Rainbow partnership, which has got a number of different people on from a number of different organisations across the city. We've got community partnerships. We've got a lot of work going on around the Commonwealth Games. So actually it's about all of that. There is a lot of insight coming into the council, but what do we do about it? So actually what this is trying to do is actually build up some sort of framework around acting on that information and making a difference to people. And if I can make a difference to one person's life, then so be it. Your employment opportunities and procurement and things like that, that's a really interesting one. And it isn't one that I thought of, but what I will give you a commitment, because it's not in my area of influence, but what I will give you a commitment, Carol, is that I'll feed that back into our procurement colleagues. So when we are procuring organisations to do a building site or deliver a service, that actually one of the good things, and feedback from citizens for me is invaluable in this space. I can go back to them and say, have you considered employing people from that local area to give them employment opportunities as you're redeveloping that area? To actually put something back into the community. There may already be a clause in the contract. I don't know, because I'm not a procurement expert, but what I can do is feed that back into our colleagues in our procurement service and make sure that they get that information in order to act on it appropriately. Is that okay? Does that give you some assurance at that point? I'm happy to take more questions. I'm conscious I've got more slides. Do you want me to jump into the questions now, Adib, or go through them later?
I was just thinking, you've got Bob. Bob's got his hand up. I don't know if you want to
sorry,
take that live
Bob.
question.
Go on, we'll take Bob and then we'll jump into the rest of the presentation and come back to questions. Go on, Bob.
Okay, you may cover this in your slide, but I think it's important to make a distinction between involvement, consultation, and co-production.
Yep.
Because they're not the same, and often consultation is just a paper exercise where you rubber stamp council policy. I say that as an ex-council officer, and I think the points Carol raised are important, because if we are going to have cohesion, then I think we've got to look more at how we get community-based services rather than the private sector sucking the money out of the public sector, which is taking place at the moment. So as the engagement officer for a small group called for Inclusion, we want to transform adult social care so it becomes community-based, that people that use services actually determine what they are, and it not dictated to either by officers or by the care agencies that are commissioned by the council. So it's a whole different way of thinking, and I think this book illustrates that, because you went from adult social care into the wider picture. I think when you look at older and disabled people, too often the focus is only on personal support, not being part of their own community. So I think that should be the baseline for any development of service provision.
Fab. Thank you, Bob, for those really helpful comments. Really appreciate you putting your hand up and putting your head up. So, and there are people saying totally agree, Bob. Absolutely. So if I can just respond to some of those points that you've just made, Bob. So the definitions of what involvement is, what conversation is, what co-production is, I think you've written my slide for me. We're coming to it. And what I would say to you is we've got 6 types of participation that we've identified, and what the council actually believe that we already actively do, but actually it helps that definition. So you're absolutely right, and it avoids that tick box exercise. And for me, any engagement with citizens should be meaningful. And if it's not meaningful to the citizen and or the service, then why are we doing it? So you're right, a tick box exercise doesn't do it for me. It really doesn't, and I think it's it's doing a disservice to the council, and it's doing a disservice to citizens when you ask them, because I just think that's just so wrong. So I will come to that in a minute, if that's okay, and show you what those are so you can have a look at that. Community-based services, completely take on board your comments. Specifically for adult social care, and maybe we can put you in contact with some of the colleagues, Adib, that work in adult social care and are involved in this. So I know your last forum last month was around the ICS, is that correct, Adib? The ICS being the integrated care system.
Yeah. Bringing the health
and that's
social
very
care together.
much, bringing health and social together in a community setting. And they're they're looking to hear from citizens as much as we are about how that would work in a local community. And it's interesting, isn't it, Bob, because I've been around long enough to know we started off in a local community, In fact, Tim, who's chairing the meeting today, was a social worker, and he'll remember working with the local communities, and we've sort of gone around in a circle. But there are a number of forums and groups that actually inform adult social care at the council at the moment. More than happy to make connections with you and them in order for you to feed in your views and that of your Up for Inclusion group. I think obviously you've got some really valid points, and it's not feedback that they need to hear. And make it valuable and worthwhile. And it's very much something that they can turn around to you and say, oh, we've already considered that and we can't do it because of X. But even if they told you that, that's better than not knowing. And that's where I keep saying to people, actually, it's not right not to tell people. So we can do that for you. And obviously in relation to services and what carers tell you you can have and what you can't have in adult social care, and I'm not the expert, and there is some information that Adib can share afterwards, but they're obviously everybody who's assessed for a care package with adult social care is eligible to apply for a direct payment, so you're in control of your care package, so you can take control of what you want and when you want it. You know, if you don't know enough about that, then tell us. If you want to know more, talk to your social worker. If you have a social worker, if you know if you're supporting anybody in that area, have and they've got a social worker, tell them to talk to their social worker, because they should have been talking them through the options, in order to make you, who wants to rely on somebody else for everything? It's not what citizens want to do, and it's not what we want in citizens to be. We want them to be fully independent and able to look after themselves and their own needs, but with the right care and support in place to do so. So honestly, there's all of that information as well. So I hope I've picked up all your comments, Bob, but please let me know if I haven't. In the meantime, I'll come back to the messages in a minute, but do we want to jump through, Adib? So what we've got here is our principles for participation. So this is what we want the City Council to be. We want people to be inclusive, accessible and fair for all. Exactly what, some of the comments you've already made of, we're inconsistent, we want it for everybody, regardless of, any demographic, ethnicity data, any demographic community they sit in, whether they're, working or not working. We want everybody to have a view. We will be respectful, and we should be respectful. And once published, this gives everybody, all the citizens of Birmingham, the opportunity actually to challenge us on this. We will act openly, honestly, and with integrity. I've been honest and upfront with you today, saying the council's not in a great position. We know we're not. We'll do what we can, and if we can't do it, we should be telling you why we can't do it. We'll collaborate by working in partnership, and that's working in partnership with citizens. As I said, we've done a lot of work in this area, but it's not good enough because the whole of the council isn't bought into this. And we will shift power to communities. I know, Bob sort of talked a lot about community-based services. I'm doing a piece of work at the moment, as well as a couple of pieces of work going on at the moment. And one of them is around, commemorating the Windrush anniversaries every year. And what I'm passionate about actually is it not being led by the City Council. And there's big significant pieces of work like that shouldn't be led by us because we don't know the best thing to do. Actually, community members, community citizens, community people should be leading a piece of work. We might have to have an officer in the room to facilitate it and make it happen. But actually, for example, in the Windrush activities and planning for next year, because it happens next June, we want, citizens to actually be responsible for putting in and submitting any bids to government for funding to undertake activities in local areas and all those sort of things. So actually it's community led, because then we'll meet the needs of the community. I don't understand why, it's not happened before, but we're in a position now where we can actually influence and help it move forward going forward. So actually, we want to shift power to people in local areas, just exactly as you said, Bob. We move on, Adib. Here we go, Bob. Here's the slide you wrote for me earlier. So through talking to citizens, to talking to officers, through looking what we've done, we've got 6 types of public participation here. And you'll see they all gather insight to act on. No one is more important than another, but I think we need to be honest as a local authority and not use things as a tick box exercise, because legally we're told we have to consult with people. So we go out and tell people what we're going to do and say, is this great? Yeah, lovely, just tick this box. That's not right. That's not consultation. People should have an opportunity to influence and shape services and things that affect them. So the 6 ones we've got here, obviously conversation. We want to listen to and connect with people. When I'm out and about in communities, I've already picked up insight today, for example, from Carol earlier, when she was talking about, what about employment opportunities when you're procuring contracts and things like that? I hadn't thought about that. But that insight I will act on. I will feed it back into the right appropriate channel internally, and I will give them information that it's come from citizens. And as a result of listening to that, I promise I will listen to your experience and ideas so we can understand you better and act on it. Inform. We fall into this trap, don't we? And this is where your not meaningful engagement kicks in, really. If we're informing people, we are just telling people about what's going to happen. That's not a consultation. That's just us sharing information. And as a result of that, we will keep you informed and update. We'll help you to understand why we're doing things and what we're doing. In a timely fashion as well, I would like to add to that. Consultation. So it gives people an opportunity to offer ideas or opinions, options, and to respond to feedback. So that's a two-way thing, really, consultation, obviously. We ask people, our promise is, you tell us what you think, we will meaningfully consult with you. But actually, be honest about it if that's what it is. And if it's just we're telling people, then tell them we're just telling people. So actually what this does is give people, if you like, a framework to operate within. So, we promise we'll tell you about changes we're planning, listen to acknowledge your opinions, let you know how the public input influenced any decision made, that closing the gap, that feeding back to you about what you've done, what we've done as a result of your feedback or not, if there are things that we can't take forward. And that, that's a hard lesson, and that's a challenging thing for officers of the council to do, if you think about it, because the majority of people I work with in the city council, I honestly, hand on heart, can say, here because they want to serve the public. They wouldn't be working in local authority if not. We're in a horrendous financial position. It's not a job for life anymore. Sometimes it's hard work, and that's not me getting on my little my little soapbox. But actually, I'm here to serve the public. And if you cut me in half like a stick of rock, I used to have a director that said, you'd have public servant written down me, because I fundamentally believe that that's why I'm here. So actually, it's about that feeding back and valuing your input. Involvement. Encourage others to provide information, insights, opinions in looking at what the best way forward is. Co-production can fall in here, and it falls between this one and collaborate the next one. Working together to jointly explore, design and deliver services or new approaches. We did a big piece of work only recently with colleagues in the commissioning function in the council, who were looking at how housing, adaptations to housing and what the policy should be for that. And they came along as officers and said, well, hey, we know what we want. Here's what we want. Get me a group of citizens and we'll run it past them. They sat in a room with a group of citizens that we recruited, who were all volunteers, who gave their honest and informed feedback from a lived experience to those officers, and they literally tore the piece of paper up and started again. So actually it was produced together. And it was very much a partnership approach where citizens had equal say in what was included and incorporated. That wasn't something that we did overnight. That went over a number of months and took a lot of officer time. But actually the output's been an approach and a way forward that it reflects citizens' needs and wants. So actually that's fundamentally to the council, that should be more important because we put people first there. So just on the involvement, we promise we'll work with you. So your ideas and concerns directly shape the solutions developed, and to collaborate, we'll work together to come up with ideas and carry them out. And finally, empower. Enable people to shape where they live and the services they rely on. And what we'll do is help you shape the places and services you care about. And that's very much about, us, the city council aren't the experts. Let's give some power back to communities. Let's bring communities together. Let's bring key people together and actually support them in making decisions and things that improve where you live and how you get services and how good those services are, and get those feedback. And obviously within all of that, we need to be equitable, we need to be fair, we need to be inclusive, and we need to build relationships. And as I said, some of that takes time, some of that doesn't. So there are also, a number of different approaches coming through. I'm very mindful of time. Shada, would you mind if I came back to you in a few minutes, if that's okay? Just to get through the slide deck, really, more than anything else. So moving on, here's some we've already undertaken, and obviously you've got this slide deck, so you've seen it. So here's just some examples of where we've done involved citizens in work that we've done in all of those areas. This is what we've done today. I said there was examples of best practice. This doesn't mean that we're excellent at it across the board. We're not, but we want to be. And I think that's the direction of travel that, you know, I can hand on heart say that's what we want to do. Obviously, you've got all of these because I know Adeeb shared them, so I won't read them out for you word for word, but there's some opportunities there for you. Any queries on any of those that you think, I don't know what that means, just let us know. I'm very mindful of time and I want to give a chance for you to all come back in. Yeah, this is what we're offering internally to directorates. So, you know, we've got commitment from our team, you know, a challenge when a citizen's going to be involved in this. They have lived experience. We don't always know best. Advice, we'll offer people advice and support. We're a small team, but we'll do our best to actually spread the best practice and knowledge across the team. We'll offer them support. We've got a toolkit for staff to use. We'll be a critical friend. We'll suggest, you know, when and how we need to engage and where we should be helping and build those constructive relationships and constructive conversations with citizens. And as I said, it might mean that you don't always get to hear what you want to hear, and it might be that we don't always get to hear what we want to hear. But actually, does that make it any less valuable? No, it makes it meaningful. We'll provide citizen insight. We've got a citizen perception survey underway. We've got an email network of over 140,000 email addresses already using GovDelivery. You've all signed up to it because if you weren't, you wouldn't be here. So that's helpful. And skills, we've been working in the area for a number of years within the team, and we're keen to expand that and share that knowledge and those skills and expertise. And there are other officers in the council that passionately believe in engaging citizens, and they will do the same. Just moving on. It's the wrong slide, Dex. Adeeb, do you want to move on? This is how we know we'll make a difference. And we'll have greater trust, confidence and satisfaction in the City Council. We know we'll make a difference if we can achieve this. We'll have a sense of pride in living in Birmingham. We'll have a feeling of being, you know, a feeling of valuing citizens' work and those that being a two-way relationship where they work in partnership with us. We'll have services that meet the needs of citizens they're designed for, and we'll have a greater understanding of the impact of our decisions that are making on local communities. And you'll feel listened to. That's fundamentally more important than anything else. Just moving on. That's just some work we've done today. That's just to give you a snapshot. If we move on. So that's just about getting involved, really. Do you want to jump back to where the participation types are, Adeeb? And one of the things that should have been in the slide deck was basically, go back one more, was what do you think? Do you think we've got them right? Do you think we've got everything? It was a really difficult piece of work to do. So any views on those, any views on anything that we've shared is really, really important. If I jump back, so Shada, did you want to come in now? Because I've finished presenting. I'm obviously keen to hear from you guys.
Yes, thank you, June. Good morning.
No worries. Good morning.
It's quite a detailed document presentation. Very nice, well done. I'd like to have a copy of it. And I think somewhere along the line, right, after lockdown, people have started to use the parks. So, you know, if citizens can get involved, what they would like to see in the park, outdoor gym would be very nice, helpful, you know, something like that would be very, very good. So I'm very impressed. Can't wait to work alongside with you and organizing some events. I would, you know, even as a citizen member, I would like to do everything on my own. I would rather have a support from you and with your staff and then do the work. Because as a citizen and as expert by experience, it would be too much for us to do it on our own. So I prefer working along with the Birmingham City Council staff. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Shada, for those comments. Adeeb, do you want to manage the rest of the comments that we've hands up, or do you want me to pick the chat up? Adeeb, Tim, what do you think?
Yeah. Well, you've got a few people with their hands up. Do you want to take the live questions first? What do you think,
want me
Tim?
to, yeah.
Yeah, thanks, June.
You've got Bob with his hand up first.
Hi, Bob.
Okay, very quickly, one area that I think is missing, it's a very difficult area, is that of reviewing what has taken place. So policy and practice may be agreed and carried out, but very rarely is it reviewed to see it working or not until there's a problem the next time round. So periodically there should be a system of asking, has this worked? Hasn't it worked? If not, why not?
Bob, can I just check, is that in relation to a specific service or generally? Because obviously we encourage evaluation. So are you telling, so is that in relation to an adult social care delivery service or something different?
Or any service that is put together.
Right.
So that is periodic evaluation of whether it's working or not.
Thank you ever such a lot, Bob, for that comment, because it's not something I thought about. We do a number of different pieces of research and fact finding in the authority, obviously. And we've just done a piece on citizen perception insight with an organisation. But because of financial constraints, we've only been able to do it with 1,000 people in the city, which is not, a great, it's like a drop in the ocean, isn't it? But actually, that's a really, really good point. I know in adult social care, for example, they do have an evaluation of services when they've put a care package in place. But yeah, so absolutely, Bob, and that's very much something that I'm going to take away and think about how we can embed and feed that back in. That would be, thank you so much for mentioning it. I think, yeah, that would be, I'm sure some services do it, but actually, what do we do with that information? You're absolutely right. Where do we publish it to let citizens know we've acted on their feedback? Yeah, thank you. Thanks. That's really helpful. Really helpful. Who's next? Adib? Tim?
Robin? Do you want to comment?
Hi, yeah, so let's put my camera on as well. Hi, I'm from Birmingham Stripe for Climate. We're a climate group that started in 2019. And one of our main demands is for the council to put on our 20 meetings and the meetings that we used to have so that we can directly inform the council on what the youth and what citizens of Birmingham want. We used to have those, and we do climate strikes mostly every month, and we have one on Friday the 15th if anyone wants to join us. And we find that although the climate strikes are great in showing what young people want and what young people's voices want, it is quite restricting without the meetings and without the direct talking to councillors and being part of those meetings. I noticed in one of the slides you said working with partnership. However, I found with the 5-6 years that we've been around, we have always struggled with communicating with councillors and then seeing that direct impact of our voices. So we understand that the Tyseley incinerator, before the contract had to be renewed, the council didn't have a plan for to get rid of the Tyseley incinerator and to put in a new plan to ensure that we don't need it. And when the contract was renewed to 2034, we wanted to ensure that the council starts working on a new plan for when the contract is starting to end, so we can get rid of the Tyseley incinerator, which is the biggest emitter in Birmingham. And we just want to ensure that we can communicate with the council in a way that we can help the council make those plans so that we have a way of reaching that net zero target, even though it seems that it's not entirely going there. So I think these meetings need to be, we want to see those meetings be in place, and that scientists and citizens and youth strikers can have a say in the actions that the council do.
Absolutely, Robin. And why shouldn't you? Is my first challenge back. Why wouldn't you have a voice? We do have a number of youth forums. I don't know if you're engaged in any of those at all on behalf of your climate change group that do have an active voice in the council. And in fact, we have a youth parliament within the city council. So Robin, if you let us have your contact details, we can connect you up if that would help. What we can also do is, I noticed you said the council put on meetings. We're not putting on meetings for ourselves at the moment because of the financial position. They're all going to be online. But actually, you do have a right to have a view in the net zero work. You're absolutely right. And so you should be incorporated within that. I've no idea who you've spoken to, Robin, but it's definitely something. If you can, I mean, I'm happy to put, Adib, if you can drop our email in the chat, that would be really helpful. Robin, if you pop me your contact details, what I'll do is start and link you up with some right people in the net zero world, in order to make sure that you get you're getting more engagement because you're asking for it, and why shouldn't you? So absolutely, fundamentally, we can help on that. That's not a problem. And just to raise awareness, I know you mentioned councillors and councillors' voices. Yes, you should have a view with councillors' voices. I don't know which councillors you've approached, but there are obviously some that have a specific responsibility for net zero. So actually, if I put you in contact with the right team, they should be able to enable you to do that. That won't be us because we're not the experts on net zero. But what I can do is get you involved in the right people with the right people. Is that okay? Cool.
Yeah, thank you.
Very good. No, and we're delighted. We'll keep you in contact. We'll keep in contact with you. I think the next one is Cavan. Hello, Cavan.
Hi there.
Hiya.
Hi there. I'm off mute now. Right. My sort of like contribution is all about housing. As I know, obviously, we've got a big issue of housing in the city and how social housing is managed. Now, I live in an estate that's managed by a tenant management organisation, which is Fort House TMO. And I'm thinking if we can expand the number of TMOs that we have in the city, one, that's going to empower residents. Two, that's going to deliver on a council's localism and devolution agenda, and three, it's going to provide the services the tenants want because they're going to have more say in shaping those services. Now, my view is that initially they should start off with high-rise blocks because high-rise blocks are more difficult to manage, as I've been told. I mean, I live in a high-rise block myself, and I've seen the difference that a TMO can really make. You know, you get good cleaning regimes in the blocks, you get block inspections so you can pick up on faults and issues in the blocks.
Just before you go on, sorry, do you want to explain what TMO means? Because not everybody on the call might know. That's all.
Yes, certainly. Yeah, no problem at all. A TMO is a tenant management organisation, and what that is that consists of a board or committee of residents who are elected onto a committee to shape and help design the housing services on the estates that they live on. Tenant management organisations are initially funded by the council, but what tends to happen with tenant management organisations is you'll have a paid professional housing team working on site on the actual estate. So you'll have like a proper housing manager. You'll have like a voids and letting officer. You'll have what else do you have as well? You have like your own caretaking and cleaning team on there, and so on. And the good thing about tenant management organisations is that given the council's financial position, tenant management organisations always tend to operate well within budget and have a surplus at the end of the year. So I'm thinking that could help the council out in a big way. One, by helping achieve the devolution and the devolution and localism agenda. Two, help the council stay within budgets on its finances, so that we don't find ourselves in a deeper or worse position that we're in at the moment. And 3, it's going to empower residents. And our sort of our mission statement for our estate is creating a neighbourhood in which people are proud to live and stay. And if we can expand that across the city and get more groups of high-rise blocks into TMOs, then I think, one, that's going to empower people. 2, it's going to reinstate a sense of civic pride and pride in their areas that people have in their areas. 3, it'll reconnect communities and improve community cohesion. And 4, it will help dramatically improve the quality of life of those residents and the opportunities that they'll have in life. So I think it's a good thing to take on board, and that's it really.
Thank you so much, Kavan. That sounds absolutely fab, is all I would say. And in fact, one of the things that I'm doing this week, because one of our roles within the team is to go back to services and say, can we help you with this? Can we get some citizen insight? So if you wouldn't mind, I'd love to have another conversation with you about how that really works on the ground, what added
Yes,
value
certainly.
it adds. Because there is a new senior officer over in housing that's responsible for engaging citizens and residents and tenants, etc. And if he hears where it's working in one area and it's working really well, there may be a really good opportunity to share that with other areas in the city. But yeah, if you don't mind, I mean, Adib's dropped the contact details in the chat. If you don't mind just emailing it with your contact details, and I'll pick them up and get back to you.
Yes, certainly. What's your email? So
It's in the chat, I think, isn't it?
Let's have a
Adib,
look.
have you put it in the chat?
Have a look.
I have, yeah. It's getinvolved@birmingham.gov.uk. It's in the chat.
I'll scribble that down there.
Get involved at birmingham.gov.uk. Can you see the chat, Kavan? Maybe some people can't. That's the point, I think.
Yes, I can. Yes, get involved at birmingham.gov.uk.
Is it on the last slide as well, Adib?
Yes, it is indeed. Yeah, we'll be sharing that at the end.
Do you want to go to the last slide so everybody's got that to hand while we're just finishing up, while we're chatting through some of the issues that people are raising?
Right, doing that now. Okay.
Cool. There you go.
Yeah. Next up.
Next question. Have we got anybody else up?
Richard. Thanks, Kevin.
Hi, Richard. Oh, are you on mute, Richard? Richard's struggling, I think. Do you want to move on to the next person? Yeah.
Amani, I hope I haven't got that name wrong.
Yeah, that's fine. Hi, June. Don't mean to hijack your session, June, and I've been trying to respond
and
to some of the...
And it's for citizens.
Yeah, but it's important to mention. So some of the really valid comments in the chat I've tried to respond to. Hi everyone, my name is Amani Ahmed. I'm the lead user researcher here at Birmingham City Council. All user research is understanding users' needs and motivational behaviours. And I just wanted to say, aside from June's fab work and their attempt to introduce a new approach, we are working with residents to simply not consult, but actually work with them to shape things. So for instance, the customer program is working with child employers, so employers who have a license to employ between the ages of 13 and 16, working with parents, chaperones and employers to ensure the process is smoother. Also, we have online content around the first 1001 days of a child's life, and we're due to go out in children's centres, women's refuge centres, parenting groups to really test this content and understand what things they need for their children. So we appreciate there's a long way to go, but we are trying and there are things going on.
As I mentioned, there are some really good areas of best practice across the City Council. It's about making those areas consistent. So that's what this whole approach does, and does that. Who else have I got? Adib in the chat.
Right, you've got Emily.
Hi, Emily.
Hi, can you hear me? Yes.
Yeah, go for it, Emily.
Wonderful. So hi, thank you for putting up the meeting today. It was very informative and actually great. So I'm actually building a company. It's called Drew, which is all about parenting. So we trying to help or improve and empower actually parents. So when we say parents, it's carer with 0 to 5, especially with the childcare crisis. So 45% of stay-at-home mom are not by choice. It's because childcare is too expensive. It's 60% of wages if you have, let's say, a regular wage, like an average wage, and 2/3 of adults with mental health or parents. So there is many factors, but this one is one of them. I find it quite difficult to get in touch with the right person when it comes to Birmingham City Council, to even just being listened or being seen. So you've been sent to a lot of, it's even not meeting, but like send email, get in contact, but you have nothing back really from it. So how do you do to actually get in contact with the right person, with someone who can make things move forward, or just being listened, do the proposition, talk about like partnership, collaboration, because we're talking about something that can be great or actually can improve definitely parents, not only mother, but parents itself, and actually reintegrate so many people into the workforce with like better mental health. We found that it's actually easier and being more listened in London than actually in Birmingham when we are based in Birmingham. So I had to commute sometimes 2 to 3 years, sometimes 4 times to London to actually get that awareness or just event about parents. It seems to have like nothing here. Like parents are completely dismissed and not being seen. So I find it a shame because there is as many parents here as there is in London. Parents are everywhere. But especially when it's early years, what I heard the most is, oh, but don't worry, your child will grow. And it's like, what do I do in that time? And I had a lot of parents who hear that. I'm a part of an amazing process, which is the Bethnal Green, which helps with like doula and mother with babies. And even today, I still have one of the mother telling me like, oh, at job centers, they told me I have to come, but without my baby. It's like,
right. I mean, obviously job centres aren't in our responsibility, so I can't obviously have a say on that. I get that.
That is just one thing. How do you do for parents, how they be like excluded, and especially, I find it more, I lived in London as well, but I find it more and feel it more in Birmingham than actually in London.
Yeah. So you finished just before I can come back on that. So I missed the name of your company just because your internet broke up there, but don't worry about it.
I can write it on the chat, but it's called Andrew. So it is something that.
So what I was going to say, Emily, is if the issue is that you're contacting the council and not feeling listened to, then there is something we can do about that, because we do have an early years team. So I don't know, the council's a big player. I don't know if you're contacting the right people or the wrong people. Do you know what I mean? I don't, obviously, without asking you the detail and stuff, I can't help you on that.
Exactly.
So there are some parent forums that I believe run, but again, I'm not the expert in the early years area, but I'm sure we can find out who that is. So on that email address that we've dropped, if you drop me an email and tell me what you're looking for and who you're looking to contact, and why, what I can do is facilitate that connection and make sure that somebody just get back to you, and pick that issue up back to you, because it's not right that people aren't responding. It's not right, and you know, it's just, well, to be honest, it's common courtesy to reply back even if they can't answer your query and help you, and perhaps find somebody else. So please, honestly, if you do come back to us and have a contact, then that's great. I know early years do run some parent forums, so it would be good if they'd have shared that with you, but obviously they haven't. So let me at least see if I can help you, you know, make those connections and improve the way that your business is running, and you know, hear about the voices of those people who are parents of 0 to 5-year-olds in the city. More than happy to do so.
Okay, thank you.
I think we've got Richard as well, June.
Thanks, Tim.
Yeah, and Charlie.
Can you hear me?
Hi, Richard. Yeah, we can hear you. Hi, Richard.
Good. Hello. A couple of things. I think we can distinguish between participation that's place-based and that is issue-based. And in terms of place-based, the council already has a structure which, oddly enough, hasn't been mentioned in this discussion, and that's ward forums. And I guess one of the reasons it hasn't been mentioned is because ward forums are not, as they're run at present, very effective means of public participation, partly because in my experience, their agendas are very restricted. So it's all about parking and grass verges and dog poo and so on. And it's not about many of the fundamental issues. So, for example, climate. Some of us proposed to the council a year ago that the council should run ward forum meetings specifically on climate issues, because most people weren't clued up on what the issues were, but also what they can do about them and what support there is. And the council refused to do this. And there have been no organised ward forum meetings around the city on climate. It's a big emission. But then if you think of other issues that are not discussed, for example, local education provision is rarely, if ever, on the agenda of ward forums. Why not? Because it's one of the key issues that concerns people in a local area. The other form of participation, it seems to me, is issue-based across the city. And again, there is a council structure which could be used, and that is the council's scrutiny committees. The council has a series of scrutiny committees, issue-based. So there's one on sustainability and transport, there's one on housing and so forth. These comprise councillors who are supposed to hold the city council to account. Here's a wonderful opportunity for them to relate to communities, to citizens across the city. And actually, I think in the Birmingham Constitution, they're allowed to do that, but they don't do it. What it should do is, for example, I'm particularly interested in the one on education. So are all the citizens of Birmingham. So let's have regular citywide assemblies, citizens' assemblies on issues like education that are done in conjunction with the scrutiny committee responsible for education, so that citizens' views are fed directly into the scrutiny process of what the council is doing. And at present, that just doesn't happen. And just on the place-based thing, just reminds me that one huge issue facing a large section of Birmingham is the huge project to rebuild Ladywood. And you've probably read about that in the papers, but the local community is very concerned at what this means. Huge numbers of properties are going to be demolished. What's going to happen to the people who live in them? What new properties and so on? The urgent need is for the council to hold an initial Ladywood assembly and then to hold them regularly so that people feel that they can participate in what is happening. And at present, they don't. They just feel excluded and powerless. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Richard, for those comments. And I fundamentally agree where you've called it issues, we've called it services, which if you remember back to our original goals is we want people to be able to have an input into how they transform where they live and the community they live and have a say in what goes on there and also in the services that they receive. You called it issues, we call it services. I can actually put them together, that's fine. Thank you for your feedback on ward forums. I will feed that back into the team. What I can tell you is I think the way that ward forums operate is different across the different wards of the city. I think there's a question in the chat as well about ward forums. So I think in some areas they're really well attended and ran a certain way, and in other areas they're not so well attended because citizens don't want to be that involved. So there is an inconsistency in that. I take on board your comments, but what I will do is because I know in some areas when I speak to councillors, they're really well attended and citizens really feel like they have a view and a voice and an ability to get involved. Whereas, that's obviously not a consistent message that you guys are telling me. So I can feed that back. So make sure that that does get fed back in. And I will do that. You also mentioned scrutiny committees. It's interesting because I've been to scrutiny committees in the past with citizens in order to get citizens' voices heard on some specific topics. And I know that the scrutiny chairs are very much interested in how we can now take this a step forward and make that happen, because you're absolutely right. I think there's a really good opportunity there to get citizens heard in that forum. You mentioned you're really interested in the education one. As I said, this is the start of this journey. We haven't fully published this yet, and councillors are next on my, if you like, my programme of actually being able to share this information. So actually, just by you telling me that, I can make sure that I feed that in when I'm talking to councillors and say, look, you know, citizens are asking us when they're going to get the opportunity to come to Overview and Scrutiny Committee. You know, citizens are asking us when they're going to get a chance to feed into the work that you're doing. Because like, you're absolutely right. It's right that you should be involved. So actually, but obviously, as you'll probably appreciate, that is sometimes that will be a changing approach for the council. So we just need to be in a position to enable that and facilitate that. And what greater evidence do I have than say, well, a citizen told me they want to be heard at Overview and Scrutiny Committee. They want to be involved. That's not, you know, that's not apologising for the fact that, you know, we should have already been doing it. You're absolutely right. But actually, I've got to start somewhere. So actually, just to move it forward, I've got to be in that position to, you know, and that evidence. And just finally, on your final point about Ladywood, what I can tell you about Ladywood, there is an engagement plan. The city council are meeting. They are going to be doing some work on the ground. You're absolutely right. I've seen it in the media, as I'm sure everybody else has. They are addressing the Ladywood issues quite rightly, and they are doing a great deal of work around that. And maybe they should have done it sooner. I'm not leading on that piece of work, but I know it is in hand. So let's hope that they can demonstrate a real change in approach there to make it better for those people who are affected. Who
Can I
else?
just give you quickly?
Oh, go on.
Can I quickly give you one example about the scrutiny issue? Education. We all know that kids from working class backgrounds and kids from black Caribbean backgrounds do less well in school. If I look at the agenda of the Education Scrutiny Committee, it hasn't been discussed for the last year, and it isn't on the agenda for the coming year's work. This is just not acceptable. And there's no way that local communities, local citizens can make their voices heard to change that.
Thank you. Thanks, Richard. I take on board. Sharda, very quickly, because I'm very conscious of the fact of the time and we've only got 9 minutes left.
Okay, thanks, June. Sure, I won't take a long time. I was just thinking, you know, we have a loftman in every local area that can be used as a working place nearby, right? If the doors are open for local citizens to walk around and people can sell their vegetables and make it exciting, would be ever so nice. And plus open it for cycling area, because the area we live in, all area are not suitable for riding bicycle because the bins are kept outside. So if we open this doorway, we can ride bicycle inside. And the other one is, you know, local residential. We have private residential association. They've got a lot of land and they're not used so much heavily. So we can use this land to organize events. Once a month, twice a month would be very, very good. And we have land, huge land. Nobody's doing anything. So if city council can come in and, you know, says to the private residential association, this would be something compulsory, local events, everyone can come in, would be very, very helpful. I just wanted to share
Thanks,
that.
Sharda. Thank you. If I just jump into the chat questions just for a minute. So somebody has questioned. So Joseph has asked, given this is a public meeting, I'm interested to know what methods we use to engage all citizens and raise their awareness of this meeting. As I said earlier, Joseph, we're doing a lot online and we use the Gov Delivery approach, which you must have signed up to have been invited to this meeting. There's 140,000 email addresses sitting on Gov Delivery. We also share it, and Adib can confirm this, with faith organisations, community links, and ask them to disseminate it throughout their networks as long as our colleagues in health. So it is a public meeting, but it's a public meeting that takes place monthly. And we do a number of different meetings. This is just the one that happens to run that we want to share information with citizens at. I hope that's addressed your question. Carol has said, I applaud the fact that you're trying to involve us, but I also agree with the other speaker about Perry Bar and Great Bar are prime examples. Not quite sure which bit that related to, but we'll pick that up. So do I. So Solange, hope this time the council will follow all recommendations for the new vision. So do I, because God, won't we be more efficient and responsive if we do. So we've got issue about bankruptcy. I've already addressed the funding issue, mentioned that earlier. So Thomas said this seems very much a them and us approach. What about inclusivity and avoidance of exclusion? Tom, if you can help us address that and get to those seldom heard communities or those people not connected with, please tell us what your thoughts are on making that better. We can come up with as much as I can. We can go through the, me and my team, we're a very small team. When I say very small, there's me and 2 full-time equivalents in the world of engagement, which is why when I mentioned earlier, we're going to have a toolkit for officers to actually spread that and spread the sort of best practice throughout the council. So I hope it doesn't come across as them and us approach, because we want it to be a with approach. So we want you with us. We've got a lot of examples where we've done a lot of things with citizens and it's made a really added value and a difference to citizens and ourselves. So we've then got a comment about the climate youth strikers. As again, I'm going to put them in. I'm not an expert on climate. Robin, he mentioned earlier, I'm going to start and put him in contact with the right people so he gets an opportunity to raise his and inform the work of the Climate Zero team. Bob Williams, Finlay, you've made a formal complaint and heard nothing back. If you've gone through the formal complaints process, you should have had a response back even to acknowledge it. If you haven't, then I would suggest going back on it, because there is a process in place and there is a commitment that the council will respond to, even if it's in an acknowledgement, to tell you about where we are and where we are on that process. If you haven't heard a response and you want to tell me about it, then I can try and get you a response from the complaints team. I can just talk to the right person. As an organisation, we're warning council about field reality, but they don't care. I don't know what field reality is. I'm sorry, I'm very conscious on time. So somebody's asked, Carol, how do you think we can engage citizens and communities? As I said earlier, any feedback, advice, welcome would be amazing. Carol's come back and said more public announcements and get into communities that put notices in supermarkets and announcements on local radio. So very much using press there and printed documents. Solange, honestly, if you want to have a chat with me separately and raise your concerns to me directly, happy to do so. I'm not quite sure what I can do about your comment you've got in the chat there. Neil's popped in a chat about responding to Carol earlier, so happily go there. Carol, St Mary's Convent, I loved it, is all I can say. Beautiful building, lovely sisters, very welcoming, very humble. Hamid, Birmingham City Council, very good at pretending to listen to people or wanting to listen to people. I hear that you are the experts and not want to listen to the. However, the council seem to be the experts in ignoring what people have repeatedly told them in many areas and numerous matters. As I said earlier, we've got to start somewhere, and I completely agree. One of the biggest areas of contention has been the issue of so-called LTNs. I don't know what an LTN is. An overwhelming number of people repeatedly expressed their opposition to the introduction of an LTN. I don't know what it is. I'm really sorry, so I can't comment on that because I have no idea what that is. Somebody's mentioning actually a really good opportunity, and this is where this forum really works well, to get into people is at the school gates. Fantastic. Somebody else has said, get the parents at the school gates. Thank you. Right, we've got a comment there that somebody believes that partners in that we are working with in local communities don't have a link with the communities. I'm not sure I can comment on that. Somebody, Natalie, can you drop us an email with your query? Because you've asked, where can schools apply for funding towards inclusion in regard to funding for PTFA groups? I have no idea what PTFA means, but if you could drop that onto me, that would be amazing.
June, you also have Wendy waiting.
I know.
Yeah.
I was just trying to pick up some of the comments in the chat first. I'll come to Wendy. I'm really sorry if we haven't got to your chat question. As I said, we've given you our email address. It's on the screen. Please, please, please just give us a comment, come back to us. If you've got a query or concern individually, we will try and, you know, help you work through the council system and get you a response. So please come back to us. So I'm sorry if I haven't got to it all. I know some people and thanks to I'm going to say his name wrong now, Amani, for responding to some of the queries in the chat on our behalf. That's been really, really helpful. Wendy, did you want to come in?
Yes, I just wanted to say, I used to be a council tenant, and what I'm finding now, and I'm going through hell at the minute with the council, the lady next door, because I bought my house, but the council needs to, I don't know, put these people on parenting or how to look after their house, because I've had to fight to get them to come and sort it out next door. It's disgusting. And now she's been burning for 2 days, and I can't even go and sit in my garden because the house was so in disrepair. And the council, you know, they've got a contract that they should keep the house or outside clean, or, you know, in some decent, but it's not happening. They're just letting them do whatever they want, and it's not right. I've worked since I was 17 to get this house, and to come home to this. I don't want to come home.
Wendy, that sounds like an individual concern that you've got. Have you put it through the complaints process, Wendy? Have you talked to the council? You have. Good.
Yeah, but
Well, I'm glad they're working on it. I'm sorry.
Area.
Yeah, sadly, we can't tell people how they want to live. We're the council. We're not somebody who can dictate to people how they live, how they want to bring their children up, how they want to operate in their own house. As you're absolutely right, we can hold them to account on the contract that they've signed. So it sounds like you've spoken to the right people to put those wheels in motion, which is excellent. And you should get a response back. And as I said to Bob earlier, if you don't get a response back, I can sort of push that through. But it does sound like they are engaging with you. So I'm glad in one instance they're responding.
Yeah.
So that's a good area.
Yeah, my thing is that really the council should be on it. If they're renting out, their landlords, if they're renting out properties, then it's in their duty to make sure their properties, you know, are looked after properly.
Absolutely, which is why we ask people to sign a contract. And obviously that's why you've been able to raise your concerns and they've been able to act on that, which is I'm positive that I feel quite relieved that they've done that, because if you were telling me you'd raised it all and everybody had ignored you, I'd have been a bit more worried. But obviously that's not the case, thank God, is all I can say. I'm very conscious of the time, ladies and gentlemen, and I am so grateful that we've had such a lot of you on today. I'm going to hand you back to Tim, I think, just to finalise it and say goodbye, if that's okay, Tim.
Okay, thanks, June. Just to say, hope you found today's forum interesting, enlightening, and helpful as well. Some good comments and a lot of things to take forward, both individually and in various groups that you're involved with outside of this meeting, outside of this forum as well. Once again, just to let you know that if you'd like to join us as a forum, the Council for Public Services, as mentioned before, our email address is in the chat, and it's get involved at birmingham.gov.uk. And just to say, our next meeting is Tuesday, the 10th of October. Thank you ever so much for attending today.
Thanks, Tim, and a thank you again for attending, everybody. Somebody's just asked me for my email address. I haven't got yours, so if you want to email the team email address that we've got in the chat, please do, and we can get you from there. I I don't get access to all of your individual emails. So it's all data protection. I can't do that because I would then be contacting you inappropriately. So, but you can contact me and then I can come back to you. So if you email the one that's in the chat, we can get back to you. So thank you all so very much for attending, and it's been lovely to see you all.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Goodbye,
Thanks,
everyone.
Tim.
Thank you for
Bye-bye.
coming. Bye. Bye.
Bye. Bye, dude.
Have a look ahead. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.